All right, parents, here we go again. It's the Ask Dr. Tony episode. This is the Experience Miracles podcast, and I'm your host, Dr. Tony Ebel, an expert in pediatrics, neurodevelopmental disorders, and drug-free, nervous system-focused healthcare. On this weekly episode, I'll be addressing the top questions on every parent's mind. If there's one thing we love and welcome, it's parents who never stop learning, asking the hard questions, and advocating for your kiddos like none other. So get ready for some real talk, real-life clinical and parenting experience, and real easy to understand answers that will help your family take action and get to that next level of health and healing. You ask, I answer. Let's dive into today's episode. It must be baby season, because the question we are answering today with this episode of the Ask Dr. Tony show is, why should my newborn baby get adjusted? And actually, I'm going to change the verbiage just a bit to say, why should they get checked? Why should we do newborn baby checkups from a pediatric and family chiropractor? Let's go ahead and put our adjectives and descriptives of nervous system focused family chiropractor. It's a big leap forward, not at all as big of a leap as it was when I first started practice. But a lot of folks grew up, the only place you go to for healthcare for your kiddos is the pediatrician and the conventional medical system. A lot of people grew up, and a lot of people are still there thinking that, chiropractic is just for adults with injuries and back and neck pain and musculoskeletal, challenges. And what we know is that from the very beginning, chiropractic has been about the nervous system. It's been about optimizing nervous system function, and it's been about addressing something called subluxation. So this is going to be a really simple, straightforward 6 reasons why newborns should absolutely, positively be checked by a trained pediatric chiropractor right after birth, literally as soon as possible. And I'm actually going to give a couple of, what would be the term on this, some factors that determine how important it is to go really early. Or I'll just get this out of the way, honestly, if everything goes awesomely according to plan and you rocked your pregnancy, your nervous system was regulated, your nutrition, everything, you took all the, I'm going to date myself by saying Bradley birthing classes, but those hypnotherapy classes, there's so many incredible classes. Our own Dr. Ali Wright is and Jonah, they're an expert in this place. You're going to see more content from this platform to help you have an incredible fertility journey, pregnancy journey, labor and delivery. Chiropractic is insanely beneficial during the prenatal pregnancy period to optimize mom's nervous system function so that we can optimize labor and delivery and hopefully keep it free of interventions. And so there's a lot there in my description, but if it all goes according to plan, and the plan was to have a incredible natural intervention and stress and trauma-free birth, which I think at least default-wise, many of us go to great lengths to go after that plan, and maybe some others are just not as aware to go to those lengths. Let's say that goes according to plan. Awesome. The most ideal dream scenario we could ever have as a pediatric chiropractor is to check a newborn baby for subluxation and nervous system dysfunction, which I will detail. This conversation is literally like foreign language. You're like, are you talking about checking and adjusting babies? Yes. And I'm going to give you all the science and all the reasons why it is such an incredibly good idea. But I'll start with the best of scenarios. That baby was born at home, in a tub, doula, midwife, on our podcast, we've interviewed Dr. Lindsay Matthews-Cancy, we've interviewed Dr. Stu, we've interviewed just so many incredible docs on there. And if it goes according to plan and there's no intervention and no stress on mom's nervous system, baby's nervous system, well, the ideal scenario is to check the baby and no chiropractic is needed, no adjustment is needed. Now, life and stress and something may happen down the road later where they want to continue to be checked and under chiropractic care. But I'll start with the dream scenario. If we check these brand new babies and they need no adjustment, that would be the most optimal nervous system start you could ever get. And I firmly believe, and I also know from a neuroscience, from studying fertility to pregnancy to labor and delivery at a level that few in the world have, let alone just in my profession, that's how God designed it. But God is also brilliant. And God knows, you know what? Stress happens. I'm going to keep it real simple. I told you we're going to get neuroscience-y like always, but we're going to keep it real simple. Not every fertility journey, not every pregnancy, not every birth especially goes according to plan and is able to hold off interventions like forceps and vacuum and cord wrapped and induction and epidural and manual assistance and sunny side up and all these different things that put a lot of physical stress, strain, trauma on the baby's delicate head, neck, and neurospinal system, which in aggregate in our conversation, the spine and the neurospinal system are interwoven with nervous system function. We just know that. We can look at God's design and we can say, hey, why are the bones around the brain literally sutured and tied together? I think we can study anatomy and we can see the brilliance of our Creator. And we can say, well, they're sutured together because the brain is the most important thing in the body. So there's hard tissue, which awesomely for a baby is more soft, more malleable. So when it gets distorted from vacuum or forceps, we can actually really fix these. Again, the word fix isn't the right one, but it's my farmer word that always comes out of me. We can really take care of this stuff so much incredibly. Like that's the net thesis of this one. Goodness gracious, the results we can get with chiropractic care for newborns. The earlier we start, the more transformative the change can be to their nervous system and even their skull and their spine and muscles and everything else because it all aggregates together earlier. And so if we look at our design, the reason the brain is literally surrounded by bone is it's the most important part of the body. The reason the spinal cord is also surrounded by bones that are all segmented and locked together called the vertebrae of the spine is because it's the next most important part. The spinal cord, the brainstem, the vagus nerve, and the central and autonomic nervous system, which is where chiropractors operate. See, medical doctors, they run lab work. They do height, weight, real advanced, technology there, right? Putting a kid on a chart. And they look at blood work, right? If anything, they look at chemistry to determine the health of your infant. We look at neurology because it's the nervous system that's the first thing to develop in utero. And it's the nervous system that will develop literally more neurons, more synapses, which means connections to the nervous system per day as an infant than we will in an entire year as an adult. I can give you a lot more math about how fast and rapid and explosive nervous system development is in utero. That's called fetal development for the baby's brain and nervous system. And then immediately at birth and right after. Like it's the most sensitive, critical period. I use those terms all the time here on this platform and this podcast. And the reason reason number one on the 6 is, especially if there's trauma, so physical injury. And remember, that tends to come with a lot of emotional trauma for mom and baby and family. When there's intervention and emergency C-section and these things, we got to call a spade a spade. And there's also a lot of chemical trauma. Those medications that go into the system, the baby, while they're doing their thing, especially induction, epidural, and all that sort of stuff, especially if it's antibiotics for a case like that, those medications cross the blood-brain barrier. They go through the bloodstream and the umbilical cord. And so the baby's getting exposed to the physical stuff with birth trauma, the emotional stuff with being regulated and connected to mom's nervous system, who obviously is going to go through a lot of emotions with this. And then there's the chemical toxic stuff as well. So out of the perfect storm, which is the aggregate sequential stressors that kids go through early in life, there's nothing more important in all of these conversations, even toxins, glyphosate and gluten and the microbiome. Nothing matters more than the function of the nervous system. And therefore, if there's a traumatic birth, that is when you get your pediatric chiropractor there right away. So I mentioned this kind of at the outset of this one. You're going to see that these 6 reasons, even when things go great with pregnancy, labor, and delivery, you're going to want to look at these because, again, and I can take that one. We talk about forceps and vacuum and cord wrapped and decelerations and emergency C-sections. Like that's the majority of the case histories I take for babies who are super colicky, difficulty latching, have those challenges that they don't then grow out of, but they grow into, sensory issues, neuromotor delays, speech delays, those sort of challenges. We know that neurology to be true. It almost always comes, like 90% or more, there's a traumatic birth. But let's back off of that for a second. And I should have started with this, and then I should just, like, every minute an alarm goes off and I say what I'm about to say to all of you rock star moms and women out there. I am a dude having this conversation from the study, the clinical, the scientific experience I've had, and then as a dad for births and for babies, doing all I can for my role, which is Not near as much as what mom is involved in this. Kind of the most obvious statement I could ever put on this platform. And so what I want you to know is every single one of these conversations when we talk about birth trauma is not to look back and I do this with Oliver's birth. What parent doesn't kind of default naturally emotionally do this? Like, we totally wanted it to go different. Like, the plan was not for Oliver to have come 6 weeks early and have a traumatic injury to his neck, his brainstem, and have brain damage, right? And that he healed from and fully recovered from. So these conversations are about when the plan doesn't go the way we want. But it's so important to know what really does happen, because the medical system dismisses all of this and shoves it all under the rug and says, that traumatic birth, they don't say anything about it, actually, right? And so I want you to know that that's really the limit. So I got 5 more we're going to cover here on this episode. But this is by far the most important one to say, if birth was traumatic in any way, and especially, let's just kind of keep it simple, if there was physical strain or trauma onto their head, their neck, so the forceps, the vacuum, those things, we got to get them checked. We got to get them under care by a chiropractor. There's nothing else that can take care of that. That is going to create subluxation, sympathetic dominance, nervous system dysregulation. That's what birth trauma does. That's what physical, and there's a scale to it. That's the last thing I want to make with this one. You may watch this and go, well, then we're good, because birth was natural. Our 3 girls all had no intervention, full term, born with a midwife. The last 2, our midwife and our doctors, ROBs, are in a practice together. They're incredible. Dr. Michael and Dr. Epstein are just 2 of my favorite humans ever. And they get the heck out of the way, and they're only there when they need to be there. Like, they're the ideal medical doctors that only intervene when there's an actual need to intervene, instead of a system that loves to intervene because they love to take over, disempower mom, and make a lot of money out of it. There, I said it because it's true. And so our 2 docs are incredible. And so they were in the room, literally one time, just literally one of our docs during, was it Elena or Amelia's birth? Elena was so fast, he didn't make it in the room. It was Amelia, and our doc was in the room, chatting, finishing their lunch. Remember, they're an OBGYN, so they operate in a different world. And the birth was incredible. Now, my 3 baby girls, their births were not traumatic, but the head, the neck, the shoulders, the torso, making it through the birth canal. No videos, no B-roll in this one. It's not the easiest physical journey for mom or baby by any means, right? And so if we focus on baby with this one and answer this question that came through the platform, even in the most natural, incredible, I always like to joke, I have checked babies who are born at home, in a birthing tub, with a doula, with a midwife, with incense burning, with Bob Marley playing. It's incredible. And they have subluxations. They have sometimes some misalignments, some nervous system dysfunction. Are they extremely, incredibly mild compared to forceps and emergency C-section and all of those things? You bet. But birth has this conversation to it. And trauma is a heavy word, and trauma is a word we use intentionally because we have to capture people's attention, because 1, that's actually what's going on to the brainstem and the nervous system and the vagus nerve and nervous system dysregulation. And 2, nobody else is talking about it. So if we just kind of come at you guys and say, it maybe kind of sort of could be a big deal, the clinical research and our practice-based research is as clear as rain. This is the single most overlooked factor in all of children's health, pediatric and nervous system and health development, is the omission of how important birth trauma is. And as soon as you understand the importance of that, you know that getting them checked by a pediatric, a nervous system trained chiropractor is essential, because there's nothing else that can handle that physical trauma. There's no stretch to get rid of that. There's no rehab or vibe plate we're going to put a baby on to take care of that. There's no fish oil or probiotic or homeopathic or herbal or reflexology. There's nothing that can handle nervous system subluxation and dysregulation and dysfunction. Chiropractors are the only ones trained to find that. So that was a long way to describe number 1 reason, which is birth trauma, but it's really the big one, and there's a scale to it. So on the other side of this, everything, whether we have that or we don't, the rest of these are all going to fit the bill here, okay? So number 2 reason is to optimize nervous system function. Now, in that sentence, written on my notes here, that may sound like one of the nerdier things you've ever heard in your life, but I love the world we live in now. We now know that yes, our genetics are at play with our health. Yes, our nutrition is essential, and our lifestyle and our environment is essential, but the internal environment of nervous system function, another word that's trending right now, which is a wonderful word, by the way, is nervous system regulation. That is what nervous system focused chiropractors do. So nervous system function, nervous system regulation is something that can actually be measured. We have in our offices, and we usually don't run these exams until the infant is 2 weeks old. So we will do a nervous system subluxation dysregulation check. So when you find the not good and you adjust it and you restore balance and regulation and function to the nervous system. So what is an adjustment really doing? You can look at it two things. You can look at it on one lens and you can say, okay, we're trying to remove, reduce, correct, get rid of, a lot of terms mean the same thing, the not good thing, the subluxation, the dysfunction, the nervous system dysregulation. That is absolutely part of our goal with the chiropractic adjustment. We don't like interference. We don't like dysfunction getting in the way of an infant or any patient. So our goal is to, in farmer language, to get rid of the bad. But that's not really the goal. And I want you to really hear this part of this episode. The real goal of nervous system focused chiropractic care, and I think you actually see it and understand it in a bigger, incredible picture when we're talking about newborns, and actually wellness babies who had great births are really the full picture of this. It's our favorite freaking part of our job, is not taking a kid out of the storm and restoring and rebuilding and reorganizing their nervous system. Like, I would love to not do my job as a perfect storm expert one day. I would love for every baby to just stay out of the storm, prevent the storm. And so nervous system optimization is the real goal of the adjustment. So the adjustment isn't really like actually all the time, because we make a lot of content. So we use, and I've retrained all of mine, which is so cool about AI. I do a lot of writing. If you haven't been to the website, if you love to read articles, the best articles out there about pediatric health, like go to Mayo Clinic and Cleveland Clinic and WebMD, there's gonna be like, the world is ending. Your kids are gonna be so sick. It's like medical sites are so, ugh. But if you go to our site, pxdocs.com, you will read very empowering, informative, very neuroscience-based articles. Where I'm going with this to kind of really drive this point home, when I started to use ChatGPT and Claude, which why wouldn't I use those tools to help reach more families, because I can scale things quicker, and our team uses this. And the old way of talking about chiropractic was to remove a subluxation, to correct a subluxation. And it always just, it's like nails on a chalkboard to me. I look at that and I go, that's not really what we do. No wonder the public is so confused what we do. Medical doctors are concerned with, that's bad, let's get rid of it. That's bad, let's medicate it. That's bad, let's, surgery it out and cut it out. We look at it and go, there's interference. There's dysregulation. There's something in the way of your child experiencing full optimal nervous system function and development, and the nervous system is the boss of development. So our adjustments aren't to get rid of bad stuff. Our adjustments are to optimize function and nervous system expression. And as nerdy and kind of pie in the sky as that is, it's actually really simple too, because the nervous system is the boss. The nervous system controls the muscles. So the nervous system controls the jaw. Let me go in order. Turning the head, getting connected to the breast, using the jaw and the tongue and the esophagus. All this is vagus nerve and cranial nerve functions and cervical nerves. So breastfeeding, right? That is controlled and modulated by the nervous system. So I'm going to roll number 2 into number 3. The other reason to get your baby checked, your newborn baby checked as soon as possible by a pediatric chiropractor, is to prevent common newborn issues like difficulty breastfeeding, like thrush, like acid reflux, like constipation, like chronic ear infections, like colic and sleep disturbances. When babies are under regular chiropractic care from the beginning, like we call them chiro babies, it's just a simple nickname. You should see how easy and connected and co-regulated this life is for baby when connecting to mom. Because what I really wanted to sneak into this one, and I really should do an entire episode about difficulty with breastfeeding and latch. We have some incredible experts. I'm actually going to ask the team to tag Begin Well Co., which is one of our PX doctors, Dr. Melanie, she goes by Dr. Mo in Michigan, has made this her life's mission. She's had some really, really tough, transformative stories with her babies and nursing and latching. And what nobody tells you in even the lactation world, which she actually trains chiropractors and lactation consultants on this real neurology, is so much of this challenge with breastfeeding and co-regulation, the mom carries all the weight and all the burden and thinks, I'm not doing something right. This is my first time. I'm not good at this. It's so often the dysfunction, the subluxation is on the receiver. It's from birth, subluxation, dysfunction in the neck, in the jaw. We got to work on the cranial. We got to work on the jaw. We can even work on the palate. So many tongue ties are revised when they don't really need to be, because there's subluxation underneath of the tongue ties, the oral ties, and all of those things. There's nervous system tension before soft tissue dysfunction, right? So the dentists, the OTs, the myofascial therapists, craniosacral therapists, like they're all amazing and they're all going after the right thing. There's something underneath of this with subluxation and nervous system dysfunction. And so when you address that early by having your newborn checked and adjusted and getting real care, not just an occasional care. Obviously the first check, the evaluation is the big one, but when you really have a nervous system focused chiropractor who says in a very empowering, compassionate way, hey, there's subluxation here, there's dysfunction here, here's the care plan, here's the adjustments, here's what we need to do about this. That might be the most transformational care a child could ever go through. That might be the most pivotal, life-changing, literally, because they have their whole life ahead of them after this conversation you could ever have with a doctor. And so I just want a newborn pediatric chiropractor on your team so bad for all 6 of these reasons. And there's actually more. I just aggregated them into these 6. So optimizing nervous system function is essentially the same exact thing. So that's number 2 on my list of these 6 reasons as saying number 3, which is the prevention of the newborn issues. And carrying that, we're kind of going into 3B here with number 4. So the other thing that nervous system focused chiropractors are, especially PX doctors. So not every chiropractor has advanced nervous system, pediatric, perinatal training, and not every pediatric chiropractor is fully as well versed in neurodevelopment and milestones, especially motor, sensory, fine motor, and brain-based development as PX doctors. So the other reason I'd strongly encourage you to have a pediatric chiropractor on your team and really kind of in charge of this department with the nervous system is for neurodevelopmental tracking. So what I gotta tell you, and I've covered this on a lot of episodes, so if you wanna know more about milestones and gross motor and everything else, you can check other episodes out on this. But it's wild to me how many glaringly obvious developmental delays, sensory issues, gross motor problems, fine motor problems, social, emotional, behavioral challenges, we can see trouble brewing in an infant. The neurological signs, the altered development, the chart that's in the pediatrician's office is as outdated. That would be trusting the conventional medical system with neurodevelopmental tracking is kind of like using AOL and dial-up for your internet. It's just grossly outdated. I mean, they're so off track with milestones and development that I can't remember if it was 2022 or 2021. It definitely had to do with COVID, and they just wanted to sweep some more things under the rug. But they took crawling off of the milestones tracker on the CDC and the AAP, American Academy of Pediatricians. They're like, yeah, that's not important. I'm going to literally freeze up here on the podcast, because when you even every pediatric chiropractor, every OT, by the way, this isn't just a chiropractic thing where we're like, how do you miss all this stuff? I mean, I've worked in early intervention my whole life with developmental therapists, occupational therapists, physical therapists, speech therapists. These are all our homies. We all work in aggregate. We all work in partnership together. And we wish so badly that the pediatrician would come up to speed and realize, it's 2025 and the neuroscience is clear. And I always have to unfortunately kind of lump them all together, and that's why I say conventional, because trust me, we have some incredible, holistic, integrative, up to speed, nervous system focused folks out there, MDs, nurse practitioners. Shout out to our well-rooted homies on this. But the truth is, you want somebody who really, really knows neurodevelopment, sensory function, and these things, because we'll find it. If it's even off, 2 degrees to the north, we'll find it and we'll take care of it. So another reason here, number 4 on my list, is you then, when you have a nervous system focused pediatric and family chiropractor on your team, and even if you're under what's called wellness care, I hope you never go to a chiropractor who uses the word maintenance. You really want to maintain things. I mean, you want to wellness, and I actually think wellness, I want a better word than that too, but you want this proactive, let's optimize. It's really optimization care, right? That we do for our patients in that world. But we can track that like a hawk, because guess what's coming for your baby? Growth spurts, teething, immune challenges, right? So life has bumps in the road, and it might throw them off developmentally, even if they started optimally. So having a pediatric chiropractor who is really the one you trust to track development and nervous system dysfunction, because we have a different set of lenses and a different set of glasses. Like we just find stuff, know stuff. And most importantly, if you find it, great, but we can communicate it to you in an empowering way. And then most importantly, we can adjust it. We can take care of it, or we can work in collaboration, with movement-based therapists and rock stars in that world. Okay, so that's number 4. Number 5, for mom. So when you have a newborn, and I'm going to put 5 and 6 together. I separated them on my list because when I look at them on paper, I think these are separate things, but I love the combination to close us out on this episode. So number 5 is for stress recovery, postpartum recovery, and co-regulation with mom. And number 6 on my list is when you have a newborn and a pediatric chiropractor on your team, you have access to somebody who is empowering. You have somebody who has a whole lot of education and practice experience. And we built a community, and we built, collaborative partners on the way to the baby, right? With lactation, with doulas and midwives and OBs, and then lactation consultants and breastfeed. I've for a long time in our office, and we should do it again. I just don't know where they even meet. We hosted the breastfeeding meetups in our office. Like, it's a community. And so this baby being fully healthy and that first year of life neurologically, again, there's more development in that first year than lots of the later years put together. And so all these things we're talking about are essential, and that co-regulation and connection with mom. And of course, what I'm really saying here within number 5 and 6 is, mom, you get adjusted too. You get under postpartum chiropractic care. We have, again, led by Dr. Ali and our team here at PwC and PX Docs, we've really created a very specialized, and Dr. Lindsay is with BirthFit is just an expert in this world. I mean, holy cow. If you don't follow BirthFit on Instagram and listen to her podcast, please do, especially if you're in this baby's stage of your life and this conversation struck you, like Lindsay, BirthFit, and then Dr. Ali's episode and work with us. You got to be on that. But mom, when baby's nervous system is really connected and regulated, that helps your nervous system recover and regulate. Because I know they're now here, these beautiful, incredible babies. I'm finished with a story about 2 awesome babies that are close to not my kiddos, mine are past this stage, but just this morning in my favorite coffee shop, I saw some of my favorite humans in the world. They're in the baby stage, and I got to see both their babies, including their new little dude. But baby's nervous system function has a whole lot to do with your nervous system function and regulation, and vice versa. And so I know the umbilical cord is no longer connected, and I know that they're physically here on the outside, but they're on your hip, right? 24/7, especially those first couple of weeks to months. Did you notice how much they're like, yeah, Dad, I don't know, man. I know, it's amazing. I'll never forget the time with my babies sleeping on, laying on the couch. They're sleeping on me, taking a nap. Like, you just miss those times like crazy. And there's regulation and there's connection happening between dad's nervous system and baby, and it's essential. But if we rank them, it's not as essential. It's not even as close to essential to health and development as the connection and the regulation to you, mom, if you're listening in here. So what's so great about having a perinatal, postpartum, pediatric, family chiropractor, nervous system focused on your team is we'll make sure the connection is there. We'll make sure the co-regulation is there. And then when you're a patient, and some of our PX docs actually even call their patients practice members, because you're a member of a community. And, I don't really see that happen too often. A few, more of the holistic, integrative, functional pediatric folks on the medical side will do that, but that's still a medical world. They're still looking for bad things. They still communicate things with a different vibe to them. I don't know if anybody uses the term vibes anymore. I should check with my teens before I do these podcasts. Like, give me a list of what's allowed and what's not. And then I would definitely just irritate and dysregulate my teens' nervous systems. Don't worry, I'll adjust them. I'll use the words they don't want me to use in extra. I don't know if anybody else does that too. Get a little sideway into the teens there. But that community, we host classes, we host workshops. We've got, we know the trusted providers. If there is something, right? Hey, we got to get that tongue checked. Well, we know who to send you to, who's not just going to clip it and do the surgery and not help you at all. You need OT, you need PT. Well, you don't just want some random, from the system or the county or your insurance, right? You want somebody you can trust. But when you have a pediatric nervous system focused chiropractor you can trust, you have conversations you can trust. You have education and informed choice, because informed choice is something that you absolutely positively deserve. You have questions about, injections and those things. We know all about them. We've studied them. We've probably taken a different course for our kiddos to make sure that they're healthy and their nervous system is rocking as well. And so maybe that is your path, maybe that isn't your path, but it's great to have a conversation. It's great to be in a community that honors choice, informed choice, not forced choice. It's great to have a doctor who's a partner, not a dictator. It's great to be in a community. You walk into a PX office and you're just going to see mom's nursing. You're going to see a nursing room. If you want to use it, great. If not, this place is it's your place. Do what is best for you, your baby, and your family. But you're going to see babies at PWC all the time. You see a lot of them about 9:30 to 10 because the baby schedule is literally ideal. They wake up, right? Probably maybe a little earlier than you want. And they're up for a little bit. They're cute. They eat. And they're like, boom, it's 8:30. Got to get my first nap in. And you're like, 8:30, little bro? That's fantastic. And so they get there, they wake up, they nurse, they connect, they get changed, they take another nap. Our baby hour at all of our practices is kind of that mid-morning, right? And then the after-school time is the outside of diapers and in school time. So as usual, speaking of time, I always think I'm going to do this in 10, 15, 20 minutes. And I'll give you an Ask Dr. Tony episode that's real, right to it. And then I really get right into it. Then I get into it a little more. Then I get into it a little more. And then that. So this morning, I got to see two beautiful chiro babies. Now, mom and dad aren't chiropractors. They could well be. Emily and Javier, two of my favorite flipping humans, kingdom-driven, incredible parents through our CrossFit, chiro, natural health community, and two babies. And you know what? Baby number 2, big dude, tough birth, in the NICU for a little bit. Another dear person to us, Dr. Jeremy Lawson, Catalyst Chiro, PX doctor, came through. We sent him to chiropractic school. He was a patient of ours, sent him to chiropractic school. Now him and his family, he's local. He's really close with this incredible family. We're all close, but Jeremy's their kid chiro. Jeremy's their nervous system focused chiropractor. Jeremy drove an hour and a half into that hospital to check that beautiful baby right away to make sure, because you know what the fastest way out of the NICU is? An optimized nervous system, free of subluxation. You want to know the fastest way to prevent all the other issues? So this little dude that I got to meet in person, I knew the whole story, got pictures, everything else, because of family close to me, but I got to see him in person today. You'd never know that birth was really, really tough for that little dude. And it really wasn't that long ago. We're talking like 2 months. I don't even think 2 months. And growing, latching, nervous system regulated, no gut issues, no sleep issues, no skin issues, no immune issues, even though the birth was traumatic, even though it was stressful and tough. And so nervous system focused chiropractic, the checkup, and then if there's subluxation and dysfunction there, the adjustments in the care early on is the most, I don't know what to call it. It's the most magical, transformative, like we wear shirts all the time, expect miracles and experience miracles. And a lot of times that comes with the context of a kiddo had all of these challenges from birth trauma, perfect storm, all these things that they had as an infant. And then we didn't get them until years later, and we got them out of it. We didn't get them out of it. God gets them out of it. They heal out of it. Their parents are the catalyst. We just adjust and support and empower. We love our role, but it's in God's design, and it's the parents who are the badasses who make it happen, and it's the child who actually does the healing. We're just a catalyst in the best of ways. And you see these miracles, and we post about them. We talk about them all the time. The ones that aren't as easy of a story to tell because they never went into the storm, man, that's the highest level of miracle I could ever experience in practice. God called me to take care of tough, complex, intensive, perfect storm kiddos. So I don't do as many. Maybe when I get into my when the beard is all gray, maybe I'll just shift my practice and it'll be Dr. Tony will just see newborn babies only. That would be a dream practice for sure. But I know that God has called me to take care of not only of, so our practices do that. We take care of the toughest, complex cases, when we take care of the brand new. Let's get way ahead of this and take care of your baby right away. So wherever you are, when this conversation comes up on birth trauma, nervous system dysregulation, know that for the vast majority of kiddos, it's in there and it's been in there, and it's chiropractic care done in this way. That is the one thing that can get the dysfunction, the dysregulation, the subluxation out of there. And yeah, that's the bad stuff. And we want to clear it, remove it, those terms. But the other side of that is the good stuff and the purpose and the why behind the work we do, which is optimizing nervous system function and getting your kiddo healing on their own, drug-free, natural, building resilience, building adaptability, building vitality, and doing it for your whole single family. God bless y'all. Love you like crazy. Your kids are resilient. They're meant to heal. The nervous system is the real unlock to that. And we had the conversation about babies and newborns today. Whew, the earlier you start, the more incredible the change in a, pretty faster way is with that. Love you guys. Thank you for tuning into today's episode. Do you have a question that you would like to submit? Either send it to support@pxdocs.com with the subject Ask Dr. Tony, or head on over to our socials @pxdocs, where you can submit your question in our stories every single week. Every kid counts and every family counts, so let's leave no questions left unanswered. If you loved this episode and you want to help us reach more kids, we would so appreciate if you left a review and a rating on your favorite platform. God bless. Be well. We'll see you on the next one.